Hello, I'm Toycat and welcome back to the second channel election video. And did you know German is not just a language spoken in some parts of Switzerland, Liechtenstein and Austria, but actually there's a country that loves the language so much they named themselves after it, and Germany did just have an election this last Sunday, and in that election the centre-left claim a narrow win over Angela Merkel's party, which had been in power for 16 years and no longer is. And sadly, just like my description of the country, and that description of the election is a little bit off and a little bit simplified down to the point of not really being too useful. And let's explain what actually happened, because if you look at the election results by distribution of votes and seats, you can see that although the SPD, the centre-left party, won, really what happened is the centre-right suffered a huge loss, their worst result ever in fact, in post-war Germany. And actually, if you look at the rest of this, the big win here is for smaller parties, all of which have a significant share of the vote individually, and which across all of them have about half of the seats in the new German parliament. So this is a very, very interesting situation to dive into, and I wanted to talk about it because this is one of the best results for the Greens. This is a great result for the FDP, and there are other parties which are involved in that too. And even more interesting than any of that is the fact that if we look at the current situation, although this is the guy behind the largest party, the most likely candidate for Chancellor of Germany, the reality is this guy still could become Chancellor because of how the German political system works. And let's talk about that just a little bit now, shall we? Before mentioning a fun little thing, because obviously now Angela Merkel is going to be leading in the interim until a new Chancellor is picked, and it means there's this very fun thing, because I found this, recently. It's the German and the Russian leader across every single change they've had since 2000, and obviously, since 2005 when Angela Merkel's been in charge, it's just crazy to see, like, how long she's, again, 16 years doesn't sound that long, except when you realize it's a democratic country, and it's like, oh my god, that's crazy. And you know what's funny? I thought this Russian guy was the same too, but I assure you, I've been assured myself too, Prime Minister Putin and President Putin, very different people, don't worry, not the same guy at all. And so, let's talk about the German election, shall we? Because I'll just come out and say it, I'm a big proponent for proportional representation, but this is an interesting example of the downsides of that very same proportional representation, and let's maybe talk a bit about why. But let's start with the fact that there are two major parties in Germany, even though they have a proportional system, and as many parties can exist as theoretically want to, they do still have the two major parties, partly because they have a weird 5% rule, but basically they have two major parties. The center-left is the Social Democratic Party of Germany. They're in the traditional red colors. Whenever I talk about an election, there's always, like, someone from the United States being like, wow, that's so strange. I can't believe they use red for left and blue for right. Think about why red is commonly used for left parties all around the world, and think about how weird it is that it's not true in that one major country south of Canada. Anyway, so then there's the center-right party, the CDU, and the CSU. So, to simplify this is vaguely the center-right party. They've got more religiosity to them. Again, Christian Democratic Union is what that stands for, and Christian Social Union. And the reason that it's two parties is because it's one party that runs in every German state besides one, and it's one party that runs exclusively in Bavaria. Bavaria is a very weird bit of Germany for lots of different reasons. They were one of the most reluctant states to join Germany to begin with. They're also the largest. There's a lot of interesting things about it. But if you look, those interesting things don't just apply to the fact that they have a different party and a different history to the rest of it, but also they vote very differently. If we look at this election map, you can see that whereas the rest of Germany is pretty red with some black bits to represent the CDU, the south east of Germany is just all blue. Even the rural, even the city, it's like, yeah, if you dive really deep into Munich, you'll find there's one green seat being held over there. Wait, it's behind me. If you look into Munich, you can see there's a green seat right over here. But besides that, it's even the cities, even the non-rural places in, Bavaria, they are very, very much the blue party. They like the CSU there. They are religious, and they are, again, I wouldn't quite call it religious, but they're conservative, to say the very least. And so, same with the southwest of Germany. There is a very clear north-south divide when you look at this map on the left right here. You can see that, so, again, black represents the right, red represents the left, and it's like, okay, yeah, there is a very clear north-south divide in Germany, but the divide you don't see is clearly right here, is the east, the right-left divide, I guess I would call it, the east-west divide, because Germany, of course, used to be two separate countries, and in the east of that country, something maybe communism. I mean, actually, just definitely communism, right? There's no one disputing that it was communist in the East. And so the interesting thing about Germany is the Left Party is the direct successor to the, again, the Marxist-Leninist party over there. And so it's so interesting to see them still performing well in every election, and especially performing well in some of those former Eastern states. In fact, if you look at those Eastern states, so light blue represents the AfD, and again, dark purple represents the left. You can see that in, again, the East, like places like Berlin, the left does very well, and Leipzig too. If you look at the, like this state right here, you can see the AfD is really just running away with it. It is crazy to look at the, it's really, really crazy to look at the, the kind of distribution of these things, because what really you're seeing right here is that north-south Germany goes, right to left, city versus rural. Look at the Rhine-Ruhr is one of the biggest, what do you call it? Like one of the biggest urban areas in the world. You can see how red some districts of it get. You can see Hamburg is the same. You can see Hanover. You can see this happening all over the country. But they have the same urban-rural divides, they have, the same north-south divide, but really one of the big divides that is unique to Germany is that east-west divide, where on the east they are very politically polarized, and the only other interesting thing in terms of, it's not so normal, is the fact that the Greens have done especially well this election, being the largest party in several seats outright, as well as winning a lot of list seats, because Germany uses a proportional system where if the Greens get 14.8% of the vote, even if they don't win the constituencies, they are given, they're called list seats, so people are put into parliament to make sure that the parliament represents the proportion of votes. So the same can happen with the left and the right parties, and the yellow and the blue and the purple parties, and so it does happen that's how they top up these seats, and that's why even though these parties are much smaller, as you can see, the FDP is only getting 10% of the vote, which in most countries would lead to them getting basically no seats. In this election, they got 92 seats out of 735, which means that, they got actually a little bit more, because there's a lot of people who vote for parties that don't get elected, so that complicates the maths on this one. But the FDP got a similar number of votes to shares, and so there we go, that's that. And so why am I talking so much about small parties? Why do we care about them? We care about the government, Toy Cat. Who's going to be in the government, left or right? Explain that to me. And so here's where it gets really fun, in my opinion, because when you do look at that, when you do try to work it out, the simple answer is that there are different coalition possibilities, because when you look at this, when you look at the map right here, you can see that actually, to get, again, no party got 50% of the seats. You need 50% to pass legislation and so on and so forth. So you need to have a combination. And the simplest combination is you take red and black. And although that sounds unthinkable if you live in another a two-party state like I do, again, you can't imagine Labour or the Conservatives, or the Liberals and the Conservatives, or the Democrats and the Republicans coming together to rule. But that actually did happen in Germany for the last 7 years. However, it's not the likely future, because again, the SPD would like to be Chancellor, and so would the CDU-CSU. So instead what happens is the other parties are all kind of vying to be like, hey, we'll support you as government if you do XYZ thing for us. And usually the XYZ thing is political, just to clarify. So that's basically what happens. And so that means that now these parties are the ones that get to decide which of these two gets to be in charge. And in reality, no party will work with AfD. That is just kind of... I think that's what German political system, very interesting. We can dive into why that is later. In reality, most parties don't really want to work with the left. Maybe the SPD can, but the CDU certainly can't. And so it's the Greens and the FDP who are, again, basically willing to work with whichever party it is in exchange for what it is. And so the FDP and the Greens, although they both did have great elections, are now the kingmakers. They decide who's going to be king, Chancellor. Is it going to be Armin Laschet, or is it going to be Olaf Scholz? I definitely pronounced both those names correctly. And so, that is the very interesting election situation. There are, of course, other possibilities. So again, the major ones are traffic light, red, yellow, green. The major ones are black, yellow, green. They can also go with black, red. They can also go with black, red, and yellow. You can also go with black, red, and greens. But again, these are not really necessary, because between the black and the red, they've already got enough by themselves. So the three possibilities that actually can be arranged are Grand Coalition, basically ruled out by both parties, and so it's Jamaica, black, yellow, red, and traffic light. Traffic light is the one that I imagine all three parties are leaning towards as the default. Again, you don't want to be seen as the two, again, both the FDP and the Greens don't want to be seen to be a party propping up a failing, government, a less popular government. And so this is going to have priority. This is what's going to happen in Germany. Election solved. It's all sorted. It's done. Except actually, here's my point when I'm saying, I liked everything I've said so far about proportional representation. I like that if you're voting for the Green Party, again, quite very left on a lot of things and super pro-environment, that's why they've been doing so well. I like that if you vote for the FDP, which is generally described as a center party, but I would say it's like, center-left socially and then center-right to right economically. I like that, if you're voting for these parties, you are actually having a direct say in what you want in government, and then they're going to go and do it. But here's the interesting thing. Now, the election is not decided by who the most people voted for, or who people voted for second most, these two guys. It's in reality decided by people, 14.8% of the population and 11.5% of the population. These two parties alone, with just 25% of the vote between them, are effectively deciding everything that happens. They're deciding who the next chancellor is going to be. Is it going to be Mr. I was going to say Mr. Black Man, but you can't say that with, German political colors. You're ruining this. Or is it going to be Mr. Red Man? Which way is it going to go? We don't know for sure, but they get to decide with just their 25% of the vote, which is, again, roughly the same as either one of these parties. Isn't that kind of messed up? And personally, I think that the interesting thing about the two-party system is that you would effectively be already voting on traffic light or Jamaica. It would just already be in the public. And this is this is the thing where you see, like, the one downside is that I personally think this is a fair and balanced system. But if you're not a big, let's say you really don't like the AfD, which is a pretty common position in Germany, but the AfD was required for any coalition, right? Even though they didn't get the most votes, they just got enough to be the kingmakers, the ones who get to decide who's in charge. Or let's say you really don't like the left. Again, genuinely, the genuinely Marxist, Leninist, party over there on the right that's like, oh yeah, well, it would be pretty cool if we could, go back to that East Germany thing. Things were better. Remember how cheap food was? Just don't question everything else. So you might say, like, man, if you really do hate a party, and there's one of these 6 parties you despise. Maybe it's just Annalena, what is this word right here? Maybe it's just this woman. You're like, yeah, I don't like how smug she is. Why does she get to decide the chancellor? And so that's the actual kind of downside. It must suck to be like, yeah, I hate this man so much. I hate this man so much. I wish I could have the other guy in charge instead of this guy. But when you have the proportional system, that's the major part. But then there's also the side thing happening over here that decides who gets in charge. And you don't get to decide, again, let's say my man is, my man is this fella right here. Or my man is this fella. My man is these, there's 2 leaders. My man are these fellas too. This is my man. I want, he's going to decide for me. It's going to be great. I'm going to vote for him, and then he's going to make it happen. He's going to make those Marxist-Leninist things I want in real government, and then he trades away the Marxism, Leninism, I can't say it correctly. He trades that away in exchange for, I don't know, better trains for the east of Germany. But you're like, but I don't want trains. I want a Marxist-Leninist abolition of capitalism. You messed me up, Dietmar Barsch. I can't believe you do this to me. Or, the Green Party, they're going to get into government. It's basically a guarantee. But, they're not going to get the full green vision they want, right? They're not going to fully decarbonize by 2025. And that's messed up. I voted because I care about the environment, and she's not fixed it entirely. She just fixed it partially, and I'm not picking the way she's fixing it. Oh, yeah, I voted for you because I wanted you to, finally bring the free market to Germany, and, all you gave me was a 2% tax decrease. All you gave me was, the ability to walk my dog on a Sunday. And it's like, what's up with this, man? And so, yeah, that's my kind of point here. But overall, I'd say I prefer proportional systems. But I did want to just kind of reference the negatives, because this is the election that proves it the most. When the system fractures too much that you need at least 3 parties, again, realistically, there is a 2-party option, but it's basically being ruled out. When you need 3 parties, and you're not the one deciding anymore, it's one of those parties that you might have voted for, but statistically didn't, that's when the downsides come up to play. I think that it's worth it regardless, but I think a lot of people who talk about proportional representation don't talk about that. Like, people are just like, yeah, it's really great. I like that we voted for this guy or this guy, because Canada had an election last week, and I like that it's simplified and it's great. And the real benefit is that, like, yeah, you vote for one of them or you don't, but either way they become prime minister, and the things they promise are the things that they at least, they don't have an excuse not to be delivering on, although a lot of the time they don't anyway. And so, yeah, you might be able to therefore say, like, yeah, I prefer that system where at least you know what's happening, whereas in this one, it's Puppet Master Annalena and Puppet Master Christian Wolfgang. Cool name, by the way, Christian Wolfgang. It sounds like you got a lot of wolves that you've taught Christianity to. By the way, in case you're curious, one of the other interesting quirks here is the Left Party got 4.9% of the vote, and this is below the 5% threshold to be a party, which actually, interesting enough, the Yellow Party, if you go back, I think it's 2017, did they go below it? No, 2013. They actually went below the 5% threshold, so even though they got 4.8% of the votes, they get 0 seats, because Germany has a rule, even though they're proportional, you need 5% minimum to be in parliament. The simple reason for that is, you know, they don't want extremist views to be popularized, which is funny, because, I mean, there are two major extreme-ish parties, you could say, in power right now. But interestingly enough, and so the reason for that, by the way, is if I'm not mistaken, minority parties getting into power and then slowly increasing it and then doing something. I think Germany has a history of that. Like, there was this one guy, he was in charge of Germany like 70, 80 years ago, I want to say. And he did something pretty extreme. I think it was like, he really wanted to increase arts funding. No, it must have been cookery funding, because he bought a lot of ovens. But anyway, you know, long story short, is as a result of trying to avoid that, Germany has a 5% minimum rule, which means actually 8.6% of people voted for people who basically just aren't going to be in charge. If we scroll down, you can see if you voted for, where's the list right here? This is not the useful list. Here's the list. If you voted for any of these parties, then your party was represented. If you voted for the Free Votes Party, oh wait, I think that's independence. If you voted for the Human Environment Animal Protection Party, as 0.4% of people did, 1 in 250 people, votes thrown away. You vote for the Grassroots Democratic Party, 1.6% of people, thrown away. You voted for Die Party, the party. Admittedly, it's a humorous party. Your votes are thrown away, they're gone. The Pirate Party, Volt Germany, Ecologic Democratic Party, National Democratic Party, Party for Health Research, all of these parties, even the Marxist-Leninists, the people, or the German Communist Party, you know, all of these parties got nothing, they went nowhere. And so yeah, that's very interesting, in my opinion. And so yeah, I just wanted to use this as an example to be like, I think proportional representation is good. I think it's especially messed up that if you look at Canada, Trudeau specifically said before he got elected that this election will be the last election using first past the post. That was the 2015 election, by the way, the one where first past the post is the reason that despite getting less than 50% of the vote, he got more than 50% of the seats. And then, oh, would you know, in 2019, it didn't change it. And then in 2021, he didn't change it. And because he used a non-proportional system, getting fewer votes still got him more seats, and so he still stays on as prime minister. Whereas, again, which again, if Germany was under the same system, it is likely, possible at least, that the CDU could still be the largest party in terms of seats, despite not being in terms of votes. But there is a balance, again, whenever there is constituency seats, they're balanced out by the list seats in Germany, which is a system that is beneficial to make sure that people get the people they want. However, it's not, but again, in terms of individual representatives, this is a better system. In terms of the prime minister, the president, the chancellor, the leader for life, whatever you want to call him, in terms of that guy, you can't directly vote for him. You can try, but you can't succeed. Whereas at least when you try and don't succeed in Canada or the US or the UK or wherever else in the world, the increasingly dwindling number of first past the post elections, you are at least knowing you're directly helping him, or you're directly, again, that's how that works. Whereas here it's just one part of the equation, which I think is a good thing. But this is a video about elections. You're nerdy, you care about it probably, or you wouldn't have sat here all the way to the end. Speaking of watching all the way to the end, I hope you enjoyed this video. Just a reminder, I think elections are fun. Maybe you agree. Maybe what you really think is that we should have fewer elections, in which case, let me tell you about this great party. We wanna abolish the capitalism and democracy and go back to a simpler time when we're all cavemen with rocks, and we'd vote by throwing rocks at each other, and I don't know what the point of this I'm making this video is. But yeah, I hope you all enjoyed this video. I really can't get over the fact that Oh, he's not called Christian Wolfgang. It's Christian Wolfgang Linder. You know, he's a Christian Wolfgang, and this is her name too. You know, everyone has wacky names in Germany. Thank you for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed it, because I'll see you all next time. Goodbye.